Hey, this is Patrick Coffin with the spiritual director for our Italy pilgrimage, Father Dave Jenuwine. Father Dave, welcome, and good to see you, sir.
Glad to be here.
Sir, is it okay to call priest sir? Do you get sir?
I
I
get
thought
sir a lot,
sir.
but usually
Yeah.
from non-denominationals.
Oh, well, that's, look, we're already out of time. Hey, first of all, for folks who don't know you, you're from Saginaw originally, and you were a leader of the Blue Army Apostolate there. Now you're with the Diocese of Santa Rosa, and you just went through the fires of hell, at least the metaphorical earthly ones. Since you're not parched.
No,
Was
just a little singed.
okay. Well, tell me what's the compressed version? How close were you to the scary flames there in
No,
Napa?
they were coming. They were constantly within encroachment distance. In fact, I was in the neighborhood that the fires occurred in, roughly an hour before the fires swept down the mountain and took the neighborhood and the golf course.
Wow.
So it was like right on my heels.
Man, it's just sometimes you can't live as though tomorrow is going to be the exact same way it was today. Well,
Right.
I'm glad you're well. I know you've done a lot of interviews on what it was like there, and so thanks for your priesthood. And I know the parish there, Saint Apollinaris, was a public shelter and
That's right. Yeah. 3 meals a
food,
day,
clothing.
hot
Right,
meals,
fantastic, very good.
whatever they wanted.
Now you and I have
We're
both been to
still
Italy.
away.
What's that?
We're still giving stuff away.
Good. Can I have some stuff? Because frankly, I
We've
have
got
my
diapers. We've got baby
my notes
food,
here.
We've got teepee.
All right. You and I have both been to Italy, and we both know how jaw-droppingly awesome it is. So, as part of this invitation here that we're recording together, what would be a simple way to explain to people why going to Italy and seeing these amazing holy sites and shrines is a life changer?
Well, it's for one because it's a pilgrimage. This is not a vacation, and so in a vacation you're getting away from something, and in a pilgrimage you're headed towards something, and that something is God. And so instead of running away, you're running toward. And the whole premise behind a pilgrimage is to retrace our roots and retrace the steps of Saint Paul and all the great the saints of medieval Italy, Saint Francis of Assisi, and Saint Catherine of Siena. So these great spiritual powerhouses and doctors of the faith, we're going to be where they were. We're going to be walking in their steps. And so we're not taking a vacation to get away from something. We're taking a pilgrimage so that we can draw closer to God through the steps of the greats.
Not a vacation, a vocation.
There you go.
Hey. I want to give the website out, the link for folks to connect immediately. It's patrickcoffin.media/Italy, patrickcoffin.media/Italy. And if you sign up before November 3rd, you save not just $100 per person, but an extra $130 if you pay by check. So we really want you to take advantage of the early bird price that goes away on November 3rd. So patrickcoffin.media/Italy. Now, I have been to the Holy Land a bunch of times, and Italy, same thing. And the Holy Land is sort of ground zero, the font of salvation history from Jerusalem and outward. But Italy, as we know from Peter and Paul, especially Rome was a I want to say a center of evangelizing the rest of Europe. It was a hugely important stepping stone geographically and culturally. Talk a little bit about Rome, because we're going to be spending the balance of our time in Rome. We'll get to a sort of a day-by-day breakdown, but Rome itself, there's a reason why they call it the Eternal City. Why do you think Catholics who've only seen Rome through pictures or footage would benefit from being there and seeing those four major basilicas, including St. Peter's, which is just so exquisitely beautiful?
Well, I think it's being in Rome that makes all the difference. Seeing Rome on a picture, on a postcard, we kind of miss the scale of things. And there's things there that was the center of the empire. So you see the Colosseum, where great saints gave their lives for the faith. But then you also see St. Peter's, and St. Peter's is immense, and just the magnitude and the size is overwhelming, but in a good way, because as opposed to being blown away by wow, that's a really big building, we're more drawn into the eternity and the infinity of God and realizing our place before God. And I think it even was St. Catherine of Siena who said, God is God and I am not. And that's kind of that's the first step in a real deep growing in holiness.
And that growth in holiness together is going to start in Rome on April 3rd. We're going to fly into Rome, and then we're going to drive straight to Assisi. Assisi will be our base of operations, if you will, for Tuscany. We'll be drinking a red beverage that was made famous at the Last Supper. I understand the Italians have something to do with producing great amounts of this. Wine, of course. We're going to be doing tasting the food of Tuscany. But most importantly, we're going to get to know the saints that have formed a major part of the plot of the spread of the Christian message. St. Francis of Assisi, the first stigmatist, right? The deacon of the church, the inspiration for the current Holy Father's name. And I've been there. My wife and I spent part of our honeymoon in Assisi, and frankly, we wish we'd spent the whole time there. It's so, first of all, naturally beautiful, but also there's I know it sounds kitschy and new agey, but there's a spirit of peace there in Assisi. There's a kind of a palpable serenity there. We're going to visit the tomb of St. Francis and celebrate Mass there. And we're going to see the Church of St. Clare and the cross that spoke to her. There's just so many things to be done and learned about St. Francis and St. Clare in Assisi. But then we're going to go to Siena. Now, Siena is very different architecturally and artistically from Assisi and from Florence. And so for folks who love the Carmelites and the Carmelite spirituality, we'll visit the tomb of St. Catherine of Siena. So much to be said about Siena. That's one of our day trips. Now, you're a diocesan priest, but I have a feeling that you're steeped in the importance of things like Lectio Divina and the Carmelite way of praying. What's your experience on that side, Father Dave?
Well, actually, in seminary, I did have a Carmelite spiritual director, and interestingly enough, here in Napa, we're in the spiritual debt to the Carmelites, who are just about half a dozen miles up the road. So, I can't get away from the Carmelites. So I'm just absolutely thrilled to have that kind of as a foundation from seminary, but also right here in my own backyard. And
the food. We're going to keep going back to the food and the wine. We'll be tasting them as well. Orvieto I've never seen, but I've seen pictures of the Duomo and the Signorelli frescoes, which are larger than life, and they were the inspiration for Michelangelo to mount his the project, but also the scaffolding. He mounted that too in painting the Sistine Chapel, which we're going to see together in Rome. And also the Eucharistic miracle there at the church is one of the great untold stories of the Catholic faith, and it's the basis for the Feast of Corpus Christi. Now, you say Mass every day, and I want to mention to people that we're going to celebrate the extraordinary form, the traditional Latin Mass, at least once there in Italy. For folks who have no experience, no exposure to the Latin Mass, which was the church, I mean the official church liturgy for 500 years, and is now, obviously, because of Summorum Pontificum, the document by Benedict XVI, it's also fully available across the church. What is special about the Latin Mass, and why should folks who've never gone to a Latin Mass experience at least one time of the traditional Latin Mass?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of folks who say to me, well, I don't speak Latin, so why would I go to a Latin Mass? And I tell them when they do go, and even some of these folks have been at academies, teachers at academies where the Latin Mass is a regular part of the life of the school. And I've said, approach it like you would adoration. Consider that you're watching the Last Supper, or that you're watching Calvary, but treat it as adoration, not necessarily as a dialogue. In adoration, no one sits down in front of the Blessed Sacrament, kneels down in front of the Eucharist and says, okay, Jesus, talk to me. Ask me a question. Go ahead. Anything. We kneel there in awe, in silence, and just drink in the graces. And the extraordinary form as a liturgy provides that sort of a noble simplicity, but an openness. There's a lot of silence. And the premise behind the silence is the same as what we see in adoration.
Yeah.
And so between the ordinary form, the dialogues are much more apparent. There's an awful lot. All the prayers are spoken aloud. In the extraordinary form, certain prayers are spoken in a whisper, demonstrate the intimacy between the people of God through the priest with God. So instead of, kind of glad-handing, politicking, hey, God, how's it going? Where you been?
Right.
Old man? That sort of thing, it's more intimate. And actually, in a certain sense, just a little more like you were visiting a very beloved relative.
Yeah.
You wouldn't necessarily slap grandma on the back. Instead,
Yeah.
you would, well, you might speak loudly, but that depends on the hearing aids. But
And if, whether or not you were Italian and you knew what this meant.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Cardinal Robert Sarad did not write a book called The Power of Noise, did he? The Power of Silence.
Power of silence.
And silence, as Mother Teresa repeated so often, God speaks to us in the silence of our hearts. And here we're a glow screen addicted culture. So anyway, I just wanted to mention to folks who might be coming with us to Italy that at least one extraordinary form Latin Mass will be offered, thanks to your priesthood. And I always say to people who they object because they don't understand Latin, I say, well, do you really understand the gravity of the mystery that you're hearing in English or Spanish, if you speak Spanish, when you're at Mass? And the answer is no, because it's an ineffable mystery of God's love through Christ on Calvary that you're witnessing. There's no way any language can capture it. So it might as well be the official language of the church. So even if you're not being fed intellectually about the specific words used to describe the mystery that's unfolding before us, it's not a disadvantage to hear it in a language that you don't speak fluently.
Absolutely. And even having the Mass in our own language, which is a great privilege that we've just had for 50 years, has, in a certain sense, created the fallacy that we actually get it, but we don't get God. God is infinite. God is immense. God is unknowable and beyond our comprehension.
Yeah.
And if you think you figured out God, you're wrong. And that's another beautiful part about the pilgrimage is you're simulating, you're focusing on your movement in your life towards God, and towards something bigger than you, something more mysterious than you can understand, and that's what separates a pilgrimage from a vacation.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And the way I put it is a vacation or a tourist has this experience. It's horizontal. It's kind of surfacey. It's memories. It's photos. It's the food, and those are all great. I've been a tourist myself, but a pilgrimage is the depth. It's the vertical. It's the soul-changing experience. So patrickcoffin.media/Italy is the place to go. You do save a ton of money per person if you sign up before November 3rd. So don't pay the procrastination tax. Sign up now. Bring a friend. Bring your pastor. Maybe there's someone you know that you'd like to gift this to. It's April 3rd through the 12th. I want to say make sure the return date's right. Yeah, April 3rd through 12th next year. Now, before we get to some of the things we're going to experience in Rome, which are amazing, things I've never had to happen to me before, that will happen on this pilgrimage, one last objection to the Latin Mass. I don't want to linger on it too long, but it kind of irks me because it's based in such a misunderstanding. Why would you want to go to Mass where the priest has got his back to the people? Like he's ignoring the people.
Why would you want to go into battle with a general who's facing you?
Oh, that's great.
General, wouldn't you want?
Yeah, I've never heard that. Right, right.
And so in that regard, the Latin Mass with the priest in the front, he hasn't turned his back on you. He's leading you. He's showing you the way.
Yeah, and often if the priest,
your general in the back of the troops, he's probably a coward. And so this is the premise behind that is the church militant, that the person is the priest is the general leading the church into battle against sin, against secularism, against the devil, and we're charging towards Christ.
And that eliminates the idea of the priest as performer, where he's got to be interesting and have a vibrant personality, and there's eye contact and interaction, which can be for some people. I know, speaking for me, it can be a distraction. Whereas the priest, facing ad orientem to the east, is leading us to the Father. That great symbol of and reality of the priest's mediatorship. Okay, so we're going to go from Assisi, Siena, Orvieto, down to Rome. Most of our time will be spent in Rome. I love the four major basilicas. If you go to the link, you can read the specifics, patrickcoffin.media/Italy. But the catacombs are very important now because they, as Caesar, because I think America is a kind of a neo-Roman empire. From the fact that we have a Senate, ancient Rome had a Senate. The structure of the American business system is rather similar. It owes a kind of a nod of at least acknowledgement of the way Rome was run, and even the architecture. Right? If you look at the U.S. Senate and the Capitol building, it's all Roman, pillars and so on. So the catacombs represented the lives of the Christians who were on fire with the faith, but for whom Christianity was completely illegal. And I find it very humbling and moving to see the paintings on the wall, the kind of the calligraphy and the graffiti of our brothers and sisters who've gone before us in the catacombs. I don't know if you've ever been to the catacombs when you were in Italy. I went to the... Yeah, it's really, really cool. Celebrating Mass down there and so on.
Excellent.
Of course, you know, since being a Christian is not illegal yet here in America, we have a lot to be thankful for. And I'm astounded, Father David, that so many Catholics seem comfortable with the idea of an underground church. Well, the church is underground. Why are we supposed to be? Are we supposed to be above ground? I mean, underground works for corpses and for moles, but for Christians, we're supposed to be a light to people. You know, we're supposed to put our faith not under a bushel basket. So we're not at the catacomb era quite yet. A lot of Catholics get upset when the New York Times writes something, you know, bad about us. That's to me a sign of something going right. And when the world's newspapers hate us, we're probably doing the right thing, at least on the right track. The Bone Church, the Capuchin Bone Church, just makes me love being a Catholic. I know some people find this to be kind of morbid, these beautiful Capuchin bones, thousands of them from monks in the last couple of hundred years. But I like the reminders of our mortality. And there's a kind of a sense of humor at the Capuchin Bone Church that I think people will appreciate. We're going to be going to the Trevi Fountain, the Piazza Navona, the San Sebastian Catacombs, as I mentioned, the Church of St. John Lateran, St. Maria Maggiore. That is tears to your eyes beautiful. St. Mary Major Church. Exquisite. It's just so jaw-droppingly beautiful. And it's made for the glory of God. When people say, well, you know, Patrick, what we need to do is sell off all the Vatican art and give it to the poor. Well, it's not going to go to the poor. It's going to go to a millionaire who could afford it. And then he's going to have it in his living room, or it's going to be in a museum that you're going to have to pay 3 times more to see. And isn't that, and I'm bringing this up for a reason, because we're going to see beautiful, expensive, but really priceless buildings and art. And isn't that concern for giving stuff to the poor exactly the mentality that Judas had? Remember the woman who broke the expensive spikenard oil and put it on our Lord's feet, and she cried tears of sorrow and so on? Judas was the one who complained, hey, this money could have been given to the poor. Of course, he didn't care about the poor. We know he was, you know, greedy, and there was a devilish thing there. But speak a little bit to because I know that as a priest, you appreciate the beauty and the reverence and the attention to detail and things like the vestments and the liturgical colors and the use of gold and beeswax. There's a kind of a Catholic intuition that art has evangelical power. I know I'm talking too much, but take the baton from there. The beauty of art and the art of beauty.
Yeah, no, it's the premise behind that is to give God our best. We don't want to just give God second best. In fact, in the Old Testament, you hear of people being struck down for bringing a blemished animal, and the whole premise in all of this grandeur is not for the glory of man; it's for the glory of God. This is not a huge Playboy mansion. These are churches built for the glory of God, and to show that we want to give God our best. This is how our ancestors demonstrated their love for God. They didn't write books. They didn't have TV shows. They didn't have blogs or podcasts.
Yeah.
They wanted to pass this on to their children, and so they showed it through great works of art by sponsoring and being patrons of buildings and allowing for these huge edifices to be in their neighborhoods, in their villages, in their countries, to show this is what we believe, and this is what we want to hand down to succeeding generations. And so it's hardly showing the glory of man, because if you were to say, well, who built this? You might remember what pope it was at that time, but nobody knows those countless hands that.
That's right. They didn't sign, by Robert whatever. They made sure they stayed anonymous. One of the high points for me is going to be, a general audience, if the Holy Father's in Rome on that Wednesday that we're there, but also Holy Mass, 12 o'clock noon, Rome time, on Divine Mercy Sunday, instituted by the great Saint John Paul the Great. We'll be there. My daughter's going to be singing there as part of the J. Sarah Choir in St. Peter's Basilica. I cannot wait to get there to experience that. I mean, I've never been to Mass in St. Peter's, so that's going to be really special. And one great thing about the timing, Father David, I want to mention to folks is that It's not the super hot summer experience, which is very, very nasty. You don't want to be in Rome in July or August. It's also away from Lent, so the weather is perfect. The weather is beautiful, and also the lineups are low. There's an ebb there after Easter, so it's a week after that, after Divine Mercy Sunday. So those are two benefits to keep in mind. Also, we're going to be having dinner with the top Vatican journalist, Edward Pentin, and Cardinal Arinze, the former prefect of the Congregation for Divine Worship in the Sacraments. And I've got a few other invitations out to cardinals there that would be very familiar names. I don't want to mention them until they say yes, but I'm excited about that too. Prelates in Rome love meeting the faithful from around the world. There's a lot of confusion today in the church. There's a lot of people really working hard to clarify what the message of Jesus Christ is and what it means to be a Catholic. And so when Catholics from all over the world, in this case Canada, U.S., by the way, I have a lot of listeners to my podcast in over 100 countries, so if you're listening to this as well, there's a land-only price. You can find out more at patrickcoffin.media/Italy. But our leaders need our love. They need people loving up on them. They get so many attacks, so many hate letters from bishops, priests. I'm sure the number of, "Dear Father David, I love what you're doing, keep it up." Those kinds of notes versus, "Why did you have to do this?" I'm sure the complaint notes are a bigger stack on your desk. Is that true?
No comment.
Okay. And he's not running for office, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
But seriously, the need to affirm our leaders is extremely important. Priests, religious, brothers, deacons, holy men and women who are married. We need to affirm each other. Because it's very important to not just make our weak points stronger, but also to affirm what our strengths are and make our good things even better. So, patrickcoffin.media/Italy. If you sign up before November 3rd, you save $100 per person. If you pay by check, it's an extra $130 off. So, married couples, this is a perfect time to renew your wedding vows in Rome. If you're part of a parish, you can find out more about a group rates as well. patrickcoffin.media/Italy. I'm sure you have a closing thought or two, Father David. I know I talked a lot, but I want to make sure that
well, that's all right.
Short shrift.
This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I mean, come and see Rome on a pilgrimage as a couple, as an individual, but do this as an opportunity to get away from the world, but to be drawn deeper into your relationship with God and with Jesus Christ. And so let this be that opportunity to grow in your faith in a huge way, in a big way, more so than taking up an extra rosary a day or maybe, some more time in front of the Blessed Sacrament.
Right.
Break out of your bubble, break out of your boundaries, and let God move you in a big way by coming with us to Rome and to Italy and experience the lives of the saints in a palpable, tangible way.
Plus, you get to hang out with us. Good? You're hanging out with us. Hello, is this on? We're at the price of admission. Also, hanging out with like-minded Catholics who love Jesus Christ and love being Catholics. So, not just a life/game changer from the social point of view, which is important, but also, as you say, the lasting pilgrimage memories of the soul. I always remember when I look back at the ways in which the Holy Spirit has acted in my life. They all have one thing in common. They just seem like they just happened. Isn't that true? There's a kind of a timeless quality to it. All right, Father David Jenuwine, thanks for your priesthood. I look forward to seeing you at the airport, if not sooner, as we go to Rome. April 3rd through 12th, folks. Sign up now. It's going to be jaw-droppingly fun. We're going to drink wine and pray a lot and eat a lot, and we're going to have a magnificent time in Rome. So patrickcoffin.media/Italy. Be there, or for all you mathematicians, or be rhomboid. This is Patrick Coffin. Be a saint. What else is there? Hope to see you in Italy with us next April 3rd through 12th. Be a saint. What else is there? See you then.